Hoy día damos inicio a la última jornada de nuestro taller regional sobre la encuesta de maquinaria y equipo para la ronda del Programa de Comparación Internacional 2021 para los países de América Latina y el Caribe. Esperamos que esta última jornada sea tan buena y productiva como las anteriores. Y para poder aprovechar mejor el tiempo, le vamos a dar la palabra a Peter, quien terminará en esta sesión la lista de productos de maquinaria y equipo, y luego pasaremos a la sesión 4, donde hablaremos de recomendaciones y de la validación de la información. Y por último, vamos a pasar a las conclusiones finales y los próximos pasos. Así es que, Peter, la palabra es tuya y muchas gracias por acompañarnos también hoy día.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Good morning, everybody. Start sharing my screen now. Okay, so yesterday we were left, we left when we had discussed a couple of vans. I'll like to follow up on the discussion we had on that because there were two suggestions for alternative models that could probably be priced at the counterpart unspecified position. I checked on that, and I have to adjust my screen, sorry. Okay, so the first one was an alternative mentioned for the Mercedes-Benz van at the counterpart position, which is the one with the 3 last digits 010, sorry, is a van with a high roof, and the model that was suggested there in the Asia and Pacific region was Nissan from Japan, and this is called the NV350 Urban Cargo. It's not a spelling mistake, it's really urban rather than urban. Please make sure to select the closest match. What is extremely important is that you select the panel van, so it should not have windows except the ones in the front and the one in the back. Reason for that is if you have windows over here, you're most likely to have additional seat rows or at least an additional seat over here, and seats are simply more expensive than the normal interior of such a cargo van. So please make sure to select the cargo van without additional seats in the back. The second one was an alternative mentioned for the van with the low roof. The counterpart specified item is the Volkswagen Transporter 6.1. And I think somebody mentioned Korean makes. What had been suggested in the Asia and Pacific region was the Grand Starex with height 1, which is the low roof from Hyundai. And that one can be selected too at the counterpart unspecified position as an indicative item. Please make sure to select a panel van and make sure to select the 2/3-seater. They either name it like that or it's the other way around, 3-2. I don't know why they do that, but well, doesn't matter. Please make sure to select a cargo van or a cargo panel van. You may find both of these. Okay, next group of items that we have are double cab pickups. Double cab is just a cab which is not with a single front row, but also has a second row that's normally used for transporting more than 2 people to, for instance, a lawn where you are doing the mowing or the gardening or something like that, or to a small construction site where you have your crew of 3 or 4 people traveling in that pickup. The branded item we have over here is the Hilux HL2 double cab 4-wheel drive from Toyota, a Japanese make. And the open compartment that you have in the back makes it a very good choice for gardeners, rangers, roofers, and for people that are working on construction sites. The relatively high gross vehicle weight that you have for this car is also allowing for towing additional machinery, like for instance, the air compressors or other things we already mentioned. What are the most important specs? First of all, of course, the type of the engine that we have. It's a diesel, 2.8 liter. Exact displacement is 2755 cubic centimeters. The engine power is like 150 kilowatts. Number of cylinders is 4. We are looking for the model with manual drive, 6 gears. The number of doors is 4, so you have the doors in the front and for the back row too. It has to have 4-wheel drive, and the total number of seats is 2 in the front and 3 in the back, so a total of 5. And as I mentioned before, there's quite a high gross vehicle weight or gross train weight. Gross vehicle weight for this one is 3,210 kilogram, so roughly about 3 tons, 3.2 tons. One specialty we encountered for this type of car in Europe is there are a couple of countries where this one is very expensive from the point of view of taxation if you use it as a private car. And what people told us there is also a version which has these 4 doors, but only has 2 seats in the front, 2 or 3 seats in the front. And that version is much cheaper because from the point of view of taxation, because it is assumed that this is only for professionals like people working in a forest. I don't know, hunters, yes. The hunters which are then probably having their door in the back row. So their dog in the back row, sorry. And that probably then means that this is then not as expensive from the point of view of taxation. So if that is the most standard configuration that is sold for this car in your country, then you would select the 2-seat version and mark it as equivalent. Could you please mute your mic? Thank you very much. For the counterpart unspecified item, which is the one with last 3 digits 070, the following indicative models were suggested for the Asia and Pacific region, and I thought I should probably mention them over here too. It's Isuzu from Japan and Nissan from Japan. For the Isuzu, the model is the D-Max 4-wheel drive LS. And for the Nissan, I don't have the exact model denomination, but it's a Navara 4-wheel drive. So if you want to price one of these at the counterpart unspecified position, please make sure to select the closest match. That also includes the configuration with a double cab rather than a single cab. So over here you see 2 doors on each side, so you have 4 doors, 2 seat rows. Next group of item, I don't see any questions, so we continue with these. Are the diesel minibuses. Diesel minibuses, these are normally used for transporting people. Could it be as a taxi or as a car doing hotel shuttle service and similar uses? We selected 2 models, the Mercedes-Benz B2 Tourer 110 CDI Pro and the Volkswagen Transporter Caravelle Trendline. As I said, transport of small groups of people, taxi or for shuttle service. This one over here has the extension L3 over here. That's the length. So that you will probably find in the brochure of this B2 Tourer. Parameters that we have: engine displacement is round about 1750 cubic centimeters. The engine is a 75 kilowatt diesel engine with 4 cylinders. Again, we have a manual gearbox with 6 speeds. The wheelbase that corresponds to the length over here, L3, is this wheelbase, 3,430 millimeters. We have 5 doors on that one. It has front wheel drive, and the total number of seats, including the driver, is 8. You could probably find different specifications in the catalogs or brochures in your country. It could, for instance, also be 7, and then it would probably read number of passengers, and then that would assume that there's 1 seat for the driver and 7 for additional passengers. Overall dimensions of this one is 5 meter and 37 centimeters. Width is a little bit below 2 meters, and same as the height. Gross vehicle weight that can be used for this one is 3.1 tons. The next item in this group would be the Transporter Caravelle. The major difference for that one is just it's a different brand. It has a different engine, an automatic gearbox, and the number of seats is 1 less. For the counterpart unspecified item, there was a Chinese make suggested in Asia and Pacific region, the Maxus G10. There are various configurations of that one, but there is also one that nicely matches what we have over here. Please make sure to select the proper version there if you want to price something like that at the counterpart unspecified position. Parameters for that one: it's a 2 liters TDI diesel. TDI, that's for direct injection, turbo direct injection. Engine displacement, the exact value is 1968 cubic centimeters. We have 110 kilowatt. That corresponds to 150 horsepower. 4 cylinders, an automatic gearbox, 7 gears, a shorter wheelbase than the one we had before, 3,000 millimeter, and we only have 3 doors on that one. It also has front wheel drive, and as I said before, we have 7 seats in that one. We found different executions of that one in the European comparison program. I think one was named Trendline, this one, and the other one was Comfort Line. If you price this, please take a note that you actually priced something a little bit different. It's small differences in the execution, but that could still be specified at this position. Are there questions on the minibuses?
No, Peter, there are no questions in the chat.
Next group are lorry chassis cabs. This is a widely used type of cars. Again, have 2 makes there: Mercedes-Benz, the Sprinter 519 BlueTech, and the Ford Transit 350 in length 3. The exact values will follow. This is a typical vehicle that can be, for instance, used for transport to construction sites. Over here, you see just a cab. Could you? Yeah, thank you. And what you see over here is just the chassis. And in the back over here, you would normally find either an additional platform, or you could find an additional compartment, or you could find a platform that can be tilted to the side so that you could probably take sand or something else that you need at the construction site with you, and then just use the tilting platform to unload the sand rather than doing that manually. But that is the standard, well, I should say standard base of the vehicle, and you would have to look for the price for that one not for that one, including any additional things that are built onto it. That might be a bit complicated to get the prices, but normally the dealers should be able to give you the price. This one, as it is used also for transport of quite heavy things and has a higher gross vehicle weight with 5,000 kilograms. It has a more powerful engine, a 3-liter turbo diesel, 6 cylinders. It has 140 kilowatts at 3,800 rounds per minute. That's roughly 190 horsepower. As I said, 6 cylinders. It has a manual gearbox, and there are various lengths of that one. We are looking for the one with wheelbase 4.325 meters. This one comes with rear-wheel drive, and well, you will find different configurations with different payload allowances, and we are looking for the one that has round about 2.7 tons of this. I think the braking system, that's standard electronic slip prevention, front and rear suspension on that one, Ford specifies that, are spring suspensions rather than air suspension. The type of the cab is a crew cab. Well, this is another name for having a cab with 2 doors on each side. So you have 2 rows on that one. And typically, if you go to a construction site with this, you have more than 2 people going. That's why we have this longer cab. As I already said, it has a higher gross vehicle weight, 5 tons. The second one would be an example of updates that were made between the 2017 and 2021 survey. In the 2017 survey, you may remember that I showed a picture of one of these vans and then one indicating that we are in fact looking for dual rear wheels over here. This is important because that makes the difference in the price. This one has a smaller engine than the Mercedes. It has less engine power, smaller gross vehicle weight. It has dual rear wheels instead of the single rear wheels, and it has a shorter cab than the Mercedes. And this model is expected to be much cheaper than the Mercedes. The factor we found in Europe is around about 2/3, so 65%. Okay, parameters over here, as I said, smaller engine, 2 liters, 96 kilowatts, 4 cylinders, manual gearbox, the wheelbase that corresponds to the L3, 3,750 millimeters. We have rear wheel drive, and we have dual rear wheels on that one. Type of cab is named single cab rather than crew cab. Gross vehicle weight on that one, as indicated, 3,500 kilograms, so 3.5 tons. Okay, now one of the a bit more complicated groups of items. Problem is, in some cases, companies that sell these trucks, they are not so willing to provide prices if you're not making an actual purchase. So might be very tricky to get a price, but well, if you are indicating that you are doing a survey for the National Statistical Office, they might probably trust you enough to provide you with the information. We have 2 Mercedes-Benz models over here, both Actros 1835, just with 2 different machines. For both of them, they have 4x2 wheels, and the machine indications are OM936 and OM470. That's for the motor. And in addition, I think in the 2017 survey, it was either only a Scania or a Volvo. In the preparation for the 2021 survey, we discussed with World Bank people whether that would probably be better to have the Scania or the Volvo, and in the end, they decided to have both. So now you have the choice, because as I got it, Scania is more popular in one group of countries and Volvo in the other. So now it should be easy enough to find one of those. And all of these are as the Mercedes-Benz 4x2 configuration. Okay, so the Actros, the first one. These tractor units, they are used for distribution, for short haul and for long haul transport. And the cab type and the size that is chosen, that depend largely on the type of use and on the typical distance and typical travel time. If you have very long distances to cover, then you have to provide accommodation for the driver to sleep in the car. So you would then have to have a bigger cab, sleeper cab or something else. And you can select that in the configuration for your car or for your truck. What is important to know, if you want to exactly generate something for the people that you provide you with the prices, or should provide you with the prices, you can make an a priori run with a truck configurator on the Mercedes-Benz internet page. I noticed I didn't change that over here. They recently changed the name. Now it's not as it is over here, but they appended dash, I think dash truck or dash trucks, something like that. This one is a truck configurator, and to get an instruction how to use such a configurator, the item related PDF document shows you how to use the configurator, and it also provides the output file that is generated after you have completed the configurator run. So that, at least for us, it helped tremendously finding the correct item and finding the correct denomination of the drivetrain and of the cab and of all the other stuff. You have that then in writing and can, for instance, attach that to an email that you are sending to a company that should provide you with the price, and so that they exactly know what you want to have. I think with some of the configurators, there's also an option that they have a QR code included in that PDF document. And with that QR code, the dealer could just scan that and have the same configuration right in front of him. I think that makes things pretty easy. I checked whether this is available for actually within Latin America. There's no special Latin American page, but in Europe there's a page in Spanish. So if you select country Spain, then you would have the option of following this configurator in Spanish. That might help a couple of people. Okay, parameters we have for that one. It has an engine size of close to 8 liters. It has 260 kilowatts. That corresponds to around about 350 horsepower. We have a gearbox with automatic transmission and 12 speeds. The wheelbase that will be selected in the configurator would be 3.55 meters or 3,550 millimeters. The braking system that is selected as a standard is ABS and ASR. You have two different types of suspension. For the front wheels, you have spring suspension. For the rear wheels, you have air suspension. As I said, the cab, that depends on what you want to use the truck for. The one that we selected for this model is the L-cab stream space. There are some others. I don't remember all of the names, but you will see the different ones in the configurator. And the engine number of that one is OM936. The length of the cab is given too. That is 2.3 meters. We are looking for this one with the standard roof. It also has versions with a high roof, and that can be selected too. Gross vehicle weight, you have to select that in the configurator too, is 18,000 kilogram. A spec which is not given over here, but to give you an impression how much this truck can actually tow. The gross combination weight for this one, so this one plus the additional compartment that you tow in the back, is 32 tons maximum. Not allowed on all of the German roads to have that much weight, but typically that is what it can carry. Okay, this is now an extract from the PDF document you would get at the end of your configurator run. It gives you the specifications. We are looking for the semi-trailer tractor, that's what it is called, Actros 1835 LS 4x2. It has LCAP stream space 2.3 meters, and then they have additional versions there. We are looking for the one with tunnel 150 millimeters. That is the height, I think, of the tunnel between the two seats in the front. Wheelbase of that one is 3,550 millimeters, and then you have some additional parameters. Then you have the selection of the engine. So over here you see the specs that we just prescribed in the specification sheet. The engine type, then you have the engine size, 7.7 liters, 260 kilowatt. And in Europe, you would also get the emission standard it complies to. It's Euro 6D, or simply called Euro 6 in most cases. Okay, this, as I said in the PDF document that is coming with it, is an example that shows you step by step how to use the truck configurator. Over here, I took a note of the new link, so it's dash trucks appended to Mercedes-Benz over here. Otherwise, it's the same. In some of the countries, you would have an intro page coming up first, giving an advertisement for new e-trucks or other things. If you have this, you will need to go to this section first. So that's select model series, that's what it is called. And then you can see you have 3 different model series mentioned over here: the Actros, the Atergo, and the Arox. For that, you would select Actros. So if you click on that, it will then offer you the next product group that you could select. And there is one option, which is in this case, the first one, freely configure your vehicle. That is the one to go for. And if you have done that, there are several other steps. I do not show all of them in the PDF document. You then say, I want to select my vehicle type. Then you get 3 things offered, and or 2 things offered. You select semi-trailer tractor. Then you have to select the gross vehicle weight and the wheel configuration. You would select 18 tons, 4x2. Then you have finished one section. Then you can start with the next section and select the engine. For the engine, you have various options. You would then select OM936, 260 kilowatt. Next definition that you would have to make is the type of cab, and you would select the L cab. Then for the L cab, you have again different options like tunnel height and others, and you would select, you want to have the 2.3 meters cab named stream space and a tunnel height of 170 millimeters. Last one parameter that you can select is the wheelbase. I don't remember all of them, but I think there's one with 3,750 millimeters. You select the shorter one, and then you create a PDF document with that, or you have the option to create a PDF document with that, showing the exact configuration. And that one, as I said, that one is given in the PDF document too. So the PDF document starts with, the item-related PDF document starts with the content of the output you get after having selected all this. And after that, it shows you step by step, as indicated before in the beginning, how to go through the configurator. The advantage, as I said, if you have done that, you have an exact definition of what you want to price. And that makes life for the truck dealer, I think, a bit easier. The other model would be, again, an Actros, same configuration of wheels, but a different engine and a different cab. And for that reason, because it's a bigger engine and a different cab, it's expected to be a little bit more expensive than the one with the smaller engine and cab. Okay, we again have 12-speed automatic transmission, same wheelbase, same braking system, same type of suspension for front and for rear, but we have a 10.7 liter machine. This machine is called OM470. You can select that in the car configurator too. It has a classic space, that's what it's called, classic space cab. As I said, the engine OM470. It has the same gross vehicle weight than the other one. And the sleeper cab has the length 2,300 millimeters too. I think it's a different height. The next type of tractors would be the Scania tractor units. Over here we have the R370 4x2 NA. You have different combinations of letters for the models, and you can select from in the car configurators which one you want to have. Different brand, it has a bigger engine, but it has slightly less power. Engine displacement is roughly 13 liters. We have 270 kilowatt comparing to 370 horsepower. A 12-speed gearbox, and they give a little bit more information on the gearbox that has been put completely over here. So we have 2 drawler gears, 2 reverse gears, and a retarder. So that's what's given in the specifications of that car. The suspension is the same as for the Mercedes. The type of cab here is different. It is called R normal cab. You will find the code CR17N for that cab. And in order to check whether you have the correct engine or not, it's called DC13. 13 corresponds to close to 13 liters, -162. Again, gross vehicle weight for that is 18 tons. Okay, that is an extract from the PDF document that you get for the Scania when you run through the configurator. You have a wheel configuration 4x2. The cab selected is the R cab, the cab type CR17N, as I mentioned. And then, sorry, can you please mute your mic? Thank you. The suspension system is given, and well, one thing that might puzzle you, did at least for me, if you add these two, they don't add up to 18,000 kilogram, but they told me, yeah, this is still called 18,000 kilogram. This is just a technical weight that it could stand on the axle, on the front axle, and 11.5 tons it could stand on the rear axle. So that's okay. And then you have the exact denomination of this one. You have the powertrain, how they call the whole engine arrangement, you have the DC 13 liters, 162, 370 horsepower, Euro 6. The exact number is, in fact, I think 374 if you make the comparison, but they tend to give only numbers rounded to 10 with these denominations. Last tractor unit would be a Volvo. It's a different brand. It has specs which are close to the Scania tractor unit. And one thing we have noticed in Europe is that depending on the country you are in, the specs like the gross vehicle weight, they may vary slightly between the countries. The prices we observed in the intermediate results for the European comparison 2021 for the Volvo and the Scania are similar to the price for the more expensive of the two Mercedes models, or even a little bit more expensive than that one. Of course, that can change in your country if you have better conditions. If you buy at one dealer, they might give you a little bit higher discount so that this comparison might change. But for the geometric mean of all these prices, we would expect, if everybody prices that we find something similar in your region too. Parameters for that one, we had 12.7 liters. For the previous model, we have 12.8 for that one. The machine identification is D13K420. Engine power around about 310 kilowatt. We have 12-speed automatic gear. You have to select that in the car configurator, and you may identify that by this letter and digit combination over here, AT2612F. I don't know exactly what this all refers to, but if you have this one, you have the correct machine. 12 probably is for 12 speed, I would say. The wheelbase of this is a little bit longer than for the Mercedes trucks. It has 3.7 meters. And for the Volvo, both suspensions for front and for rear are both air. The cabs are with different denominations than for the other ones. What we found is FM, that is for this model over here. And it is the SLP, so that probably stands for sleeper as an abbreviation. Gross vehicle weight for that one is 19,500 kilogram. Okay, this is an extract from the PDF document and from the selection that is showing on the screen. Over here, we have the engine with 13 liters and the one D13K420. That is what we selected. And we have this additional parameters over here. For the cabs, to give you an impression of which mistakes you can make when selecting the wrong cab or other things. You have, well, new offer, that was when we compiled this, so probably half a year or a year old. Crew cab was then the newest stuff. With this one, doesn't only accommodate a driver and his co-driver, but may have more people sitting in the back. Then you have the standard sleeper cab that you have over here, or a very comfortable one where you have, as you can see down here, you have extra room, spacious room for people that can sleep over there. So you have different configurations of that one. Please make sure to select the correct type of cab. And all the dimensions are given here. And if you find differences in dimensions, you could probably just check in these drawings whether it just probably adds only this and this and this and this, and not the distance from the center of the wheel or from the bottom of this metal part to the ground. Sometimes that is not included. So with all these measurements, you should be careful that you have the correct model there. So we are a bit early with that, but I assumed that we would have more questions in the last part. So we saved some time for the discussion and also for the do's and don'ts, because my impression is that that is a bit longer than what I had previously anticipated. Now, question to Claudia: would you want the discussion of the slides you presented, you prepared yesterday? Would you want to have that now or at the end?
Peter, we have a question before going to that.
Okay. Yeah, I just.
A question from Stefan Paul. Can you see it, or do you want me to read it?
No, it's okay. Well, that's bad. What would I do? If you don't buy any new trucks at all, then they are not representative for your country, and you should not include them in your sample. If you only have used trucks, well, you say usually, okay, you don't have a dealership. So if there's a significant number, and that doesn't need to be the biggest market share, but if you have a significant number of new trucks being bought in your country, then try to find out which type of truck this is and whether it is by any means one of the models that are present in the sample, or a model which is close to that. If it is, then select the proper counterpart position, and then you would have to look for a dealership which normally would handle requests from your country. It might help to phone or contact by email the headquarters of the truck manufacturers that you see as new items, or see new trucks on your road, and then just try to get a representative servicing your country. He doesn't necessarily have to be located in your country. We have the same situation in Europe if you go to the former Yugoslav countries. In many cases, there's only a dealer, let's say in Bosnia, and he's then dealing with Bosnia and Serbia and Croatia. And so you might have something similar in your area. Does that answer your question?
Stefan Paul?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
One thing I should stress again, I think we are coming back to that later when we do our conclusions. But remember, if you do something like that, then you would need to take into account that you would also need to calculate any import duties, import taxes, or whatever has to be paid by the customer to actually get the car in your country and to get it on the road and running, because that then all has to be included.
One important note to make: in this year budget for our country, we have made some special provisions just for this year as it relates to importation of trucks. So our duties will actually be lower this year, but it will be maybe higher next year and the years coming.
Okay.
How would you suggest I deal with that?
Well, I think we need the price levels because the reference year is 2021. I would try to go with the situation as it is right now or has been in the previous year. That's otherwise you are not measuring the correct things in the correct year. But well, is Rui there today too? Whether he would give a different recommendation, I do not know. From the point of view of my feeling, what I would do is I would take the situation that was in place in 2021.
Okay.
Muchas gracias, Peter. Ciertamente el año 2021, post pandemia, o durante pandemia más bien, porque todavía esto no termina, serán años bastante diferentes a los años previos de los ciclos anteriores. Hay un micrófono abierto. Muchas gracias. Ok. Muchas gracias, Peter, por esta revisión de toda la sesión 3, en especial esta última parte sobre vehículos, este grupo de vehículos con todos sus detalles, especificaciones, sus usos posibles, porque de esa manera uno sabe dónde tiene que ir a buscar los precios, y también por esta idea de factores de precio, qué es lo que debiera ser más caro o menos, de modo tener así una idea previa de validación o de consistencia de la información que vamos a recolectar. También todo este tema que salió ayer sobre aquellos modelos que no son tan representativos en los países de nuestra región y cómo abordar ese problema. Entonces, la idea aquí es que ustedes lo incluyan dentro de los ítems no especificados, ¿ya? Y dependiendo, digamos, de si se repiten, podríamos construir con ellos una lista regional con aquellos ítems. Pero básicamente la idea sería que ustedes lo incluyeran de manera en los ítems no especificados, así un poco como Peter nos mostró que han hecho otras regiones, en particular la región del Asia-Pacífico, donde nos mostró los modelos donde eran más representativos en esos países. También te queremos agradecer, Peter, por las recomendaciones para la recolección y para la búsqueda de fuentes de información, todo esto que nos estás mostrando, ir al distribuidor oficial, en fin, a las casas matrices, de modo de poder indagar cuál sería el precio en nuestras regiones o nuestros países de aquellos ítems. Así es que muchas gracias de nuevo por toda esta revisión de los ítems que componen la lista de maquinaria y equipo. O sea, no son todos, pero fueron aquellos que seleccionaste y digamos, en conjunto, de manera de tener un panorama bastante amplio para poder hacer esta compilación de la manera más apropiada, siempre buscando la comparabilidad, ¿no es cierto? Yo no sé si entramos a la sesión 4 o bien le doy la palabra a mi colega Paula Fuensalida, quien les va a solicitar, digamos, que llenen una evaluación e iríamos a un break de 10 minutos donde podrían aprovechar de estirarse, de tomarse un café o de llenar esta evaluación, que se lo vamos a agradecer mucho. Así es que yo creo que podríamos parar aquí, Peter, si te parece, y continuar luego del break con la sesión 4 para no partirla, digamos, y seguir finalmente con la sesión 5, con las conclusiones finales. ¿Te parece, Peter?
Yes, I agree with that. There's one thing I would rather discuss prior to that, is because I forgot to mention that before. Ernestina had yesterday mentioned something about Atlas Copco rotary screw compressors, electric models. I checked on that. They are already available in Europe. There was a press statement pushed out in December of 2021. And what the idea is that these models are probably becoming more and more popular, because in Europe now the new equipment has to comply to EU stage 5 diesel. This is available from Atlas Copco is still at least in Europe, the most common equipment that you have over there. But because this is expensive, you need to have additional equipment on the machines. That adds up some 60% to the price of the normal base unit. And that means that the electric variant becomes now more and more attractive. So far in Europe, they made a survey and said around about 20% of the construction sites could be serviced with this type of equipment. So I assume that might become more popular in the coming years, but for the 2021 cycle, I would say the diesel models are still the dominant ones, at least in the European market. I do not know how the situation in Latin America and the Caribbean is. So if it has been something that was very popular in that field, I would make a model suggestion. I analyzed the models that were available there, and I will include that in a list that I'm going to send to ECLAC, and you can then communicate that to the other people. I don't have the exact denomination. It's ER VSD something, but I don't know the number right now. I have to select that, and I will give you that, so that people then also have this as a variant.
Muchas gracias, Peter. La verdad que obviamente los modelos van a ir cambiando y van a ir, digamos, yendo siempre a modelos con características más ecosustentables, ¿no es cierto? Pero evidentemente en este ciclo 2021 lo que se pide en este compresor de Atlas Copco es diésel, es el modelo diésel tal como tú lo especificas. Así es que nos quedamos con eso, nos quedamos con esta idea general de lo que se pide, independientemente que hayan nuevos modelos con características más modernas. Vamos a utilizar en términos de comparabilidad las especificaciones que aparecen en la lista de los ítems de la encuesta. Así es que esa es un poco la recomendación general y que se aplica en este modelo que nos comentaba Peter. Ahora, Paula, si quieres, te doy la palabra.
Aló, sí. Hola.
Te escuchamos perfecto.
Ya. Que quisiera, en el chat les acabo de enviar un enlace para que por favor llenen la encuesta, porque estamos muy agradecidos de sus asistencias y esperamos que este taller les haya servido para su trabajo y su institución. Contarles que su retroalimentación será de mucha utilidad para nuestros futuros talleres, por lo que se les agradecerá responder esta breve encuesta que les tomará unos minutos en responder. Ok, muchas gracias y ahí le escribí el enlace de la encuesta. Que tengan un buen día. Que tengamos
Muchas gracias, Paula. Perdona, Paula, por interrumpirte. Muchas gracias por esta invitación a llenar esta encuesta de evaluación del taller. Como les decía Paula, es bien importante para nosotros. Así es que ahora que nos vamos a ir al break, si tienen unos minutos, sería muy bueno que la pudieran completar. Muchas gracias. Esperamos que hayan podido estirarse un ratito y si han tenido tiempo para poder llenar nuestra encuesta. Siguiendo con nuestra agenda para esta última jornada, vamos a pasar a la sesión 4, donde vamos a revisar todos los temas de recomendaciones en la compilación y en la validación de los datos para los ítems de la encuesta de maquinaria y equipo. Así es que no nos entretengo más y los dejo con Peter.
Thank you, Claudia, and welcome back, everybody, to the last chunk of the talk about data and data collection and data validation. Again, as I said previously, we thank Asian Development Bank for permission to use the material that was taken from their workshops. First, give you an outline of what I'm going to provide some details on. First of all, I'm going to come back to the data collection form. I know that we has already given you some information on that, but I want to add some information from a different point of view. And so I think it's probably okay to repeat part of that. Then we talk about how to use the different tabs there, additional information sources. Then we come up with some recommendations. We found that to be quite a good idea. We had that already in place for the workshops for Asia and Pacific, and countries told us there that they benefited from that. So we thought we might repeat that for this workshop too. And we hope that we'll be able to build up on that and come with more recommendations for the next workshop that will be then done on data validation. And as we are going to get your data, and as ECLAC and in part me will work together on the data validation, I will give you some information how this is done, why this is done, and what can be reached by it. And I think that will help motivate people to understand the situation of ECLAC and us better. And we will see the effect it can have and actually had in the survey that we are running currently for the European comparison program. I took the examples from that one. Okay, so when you open up your data collection form and have probably read carefully the instructions which are given in tab 2, you will then go to the index, and from this index sheet you can reach all the others. You have a list of the items. Of course, you can search along that list using normal Excel search functions, and then you have hyperlinks on the left-hand side in the left column next to the item denomination. It is labeled with the item code that corresponds to the codes that I used in the slides in the previous presentation. And from this, you can directly click on that, and then you are taken to the item data input sheet that you can use. The other tabs like instruction, country data can then also be selected by clicking on the hyperlinks. And if you are then on one of these tabs, in this case, the index tab, the country tab, you would first fill in your country name, your 3-letter ISO country code, for instance, PER for Peru, your currency, which is your local currency, and the reference year, which in this case would be reference year 2021, even if you're collecting the data in 2022.
Se están recopilando los datos este año, en el 2022. De ahí en adelante, todos los precios tienen que ser informados en la moneda que ustedes ingresaron aquí inicialmente, en este campo. Esto ha sucedido en un par de países durante el último ciclo, y nosotros enfrentamos nuevamente el mismo problema durante este ciclo de parte de países de otras partes del mundo. Las personas se atienden a agregar el símbolo de la moneda o la abreviación de la moneda en el campo de ingreso de los precios. Eso no tiene que hacerse porque los campos de ingreso de precios solo aceptan cifras, números, y si no lo hacen adecuadamente, el nombre de la moneda, si ingresan el nombre de la moneda en ese campo, eso va a provocar un error en el cálculo y por lo tanto no se va a poder procesar en forma automática y correctamente. Entonces especifiquen una sola vez la moneda, una vez aquí, y para el resto simplemente anoten la cifra sin necesidad de volver a explicitar la moneda. Después tenemos el...
For you to read afterwards, when you probably read that again, I have put numbers in these areas and then labeled that again down here and on the next slides to reference to these areas. Over here in the first area, please give the make and model of what you actually priced. So if you are in a specified position, ideally it should be exactly what you're having over here. We had a discussion yesterday after the meeting, I think where Ernestina raised a question asked by a couple of countries, but what can we do, for instance, if we price Caterpillar equipment which is directly produced in Brazil, and in the item sheet it says Caterpillar USA. Well, this is going to be stressed again later, but this is just an indicative thing that this tells you where the headquarters are, or where normally this stuff is produced for parts of the world. If it is produced in your country, that's fine. We have the situation, for instance, for ESAB. ESAB equipment is originally coming from Sweden, this brand, the welding equipment, but a large amount of their production in Europe comes from Poland. So even if it is produced in Poland, that's fine. If you have this information, just report it. Otherwise, just forget about that. So it's just important that you have the correct brand. Second one would be the model. If you have additional information like the model number, you might as well put that in here, but please repeat the model number, model name given. If you are pricing exactly that, then please repeat it over here. And if you have anything else, please state there that you priced something else. For all the parameters that have been provided in the structured product description and have been selected from that one, you might report either the imperial value in the imperial column, or you might provide the metric value. That does not matter to us, that's okay. So if you specify 6 kilogram or 13 point something libs, that's fine. In this area, you should fill in all the fields. If they are not available, make an indication that it is not available. In Eurostat data collection forms, we ask people to put NA, like not available there, or another abbreviation. I don't know the abbreviation for that in Spanish, but if it is common, just use it. People at ECLAC will know that that means not available. So please fill in all this information to the extent possible. And if you have some parameters that are not available in the documentation that you received, then just state that. The company website, you might use this area for recording the company website. Please note, this is given for almost all of the branded items, and it's not, of course, provided for the unspecified items, because World Bank didn't know in advance which ones you are going to select. If you want to record the website where you actually found it, please feel free to do so. You can do that over here. The two other parameters down here, type of price information and price from the internet, I'm going to discuss on the next slide. As I said, company website is only provided for specified items. Type of price information, I am not sure that World Bank actually evaluates that. This is something coming from the European Comparison Program. Typically, the idea there was to provide information about the type of discount information we would get there. The first one would be, this is just a list price and the discount is provided separately, which would be the most desirable case. You know, for instance, you have a list price of $7,000 and you have a discount of 20%, then you would record the 7,000 in one input field and the 20% in the other input field. One important thing I forgot to mention on the first slide, but we will come back to that later, sorry. So the second one would then be list price and there's no discount offered at all. This is the case in a couple of European countries for some items where people and dealers say you either buy it at that price or you leave it. The third one would be, I know that the price is discounted, but the dealer or the website or the brochure didn't disclose a list price. So in that case, you would report the price in the unit price input field and then record a 0 in the discount field because you don't have that, and make an additional indication of this situation. That's why the reason why I would then put in a 3. Last, and that is the worst case, if you do not know the information, just enter a 4. As I got Rui yesterday, you might as well leave out this information, but if you are willing to provide it, that's fine with us, and that might help to get a picture of how many problems people had to obtain separate discount information. Lastly, at Eurostat, we wanted to know whether we have a huge number of prices from the internet or not, and that's why this input field was added. World Bank has copied that input field and probably will make an evaluation afterwards. I do not know exactly, but it doesn't have an influence on the results of your price calculation, but it's just extra information we would appreciate to have. So if you took the information from the internet directly, please record that there. That would be these 3 fields. But if you don't enter anything there, that's still okay to calculate with that. What is more important is to have correct information in these input fields. The unit-based price is one of the components that we already discussed and that Rui also presented. Please record the order quantity, just give a number over here, and then give the separate components of additional cost that you would have: delivery cost, installation cost, other unit cost, which would, for instance, include the extra, I think, registration that Ernestina mentioned yesterday. And then over here, you could specify the discount per unit. Please note, you don't have to key in the percent yourself. That is automatically done as this input field is formatted appropriately. So if you want to specify a discount of 20%, just enter a 20 in this, enter a 20 in this input field. It will automatically show 20%. So don't enter 0.2 in order to identify a factor or something like that. That is done by the system. And then you have other non-deductible taxes. Please make sure if you have import taxes and other things, as Rui said yesterday, please make sure to report only those which are non-deductible for the commercial buyer. From that, as you see over here, you already have a 0 in this components that are over there, all empty. The system would report a price of 0, whatever your local currency is. Please note, please do not specify anything in here yourself. This is an automatic calculation formula. Please don't alter that. We discussed that yesterday, and I am not yet sure whether the data collection form, when it arrives at the statistical offices, will be locked or unlocked. Even if it is unlocked, please do not modify this calculation formula or the overall structure of this data sheet, because otherwise the automatic transfer of the information to the database, which is underlying and which is exported to be used for the price comparison, that will be harmed. So please do not alter the structure over here. As we said yesterday, you have an input field, an information field notes. This is the one labeled with the 6 over here. Over here, for instance, for this fire extinguisher, you see you have an information on the product code, and you have an information about the fire rating once again. Please read this if you want to price something and check whether you find additional information in that might help you to find the correct price. Importance, as Rui said yesterday, this is, as far as I remember, not influencing the calculation, and it is not going to be taken into account. Rui, please interrupt me if I am wrong with that, but that is what I think I heard yesterday. Finally, please report the date of price collection. In this input field, just give a date there. Are there any questions on this part of the data collection form? Because remember, you are all going to work in that, or whoever is keying in the prices for you, I should say. Okay, I see a comment down there, N/A, N/E, yeah.
Peter?
Yeah.
Peter, we confirm that the form has no locked cells. So it's very important.
Las celdas tal como lo planteó Peter y no alteren las fórmulas y digamos el llenado del formulario sea correcto. Solo tengo un comentario sobre la fecha de recolección, porque independiente que la fecha de recolección pueda ser el primer trimestre de 2022, se refiera a los precios de 2021. Eso lo ponemos en los comentarios, ¿no es cierto?
Yes.
There is another question, Peter.
Yeah.
But I think that it was answered the first session. Maybe here, Shelly-Ann has a question. How do we determine if item is important for less important? Or less important.
Or probably or less important, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, well, this is a bit vague. In the European comparison program, the terminus for this is not important or less important, but is representative or not representative, but still the same problem. Actually, in the calculation, it's possible to say that you want the calculation taking into account this importance indicator, then simply the weight on the prices that are marked as important is higher, or you can disregard this information. In most cases, I would say the prices that are collected in Europe, I would say people indicate 95% of the prices are important or representative, as they say. It means representative of their market. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to have a high share in the sales for this specific item, but in fact it means this brand is important and this brand is important in this basic heading, and this item is important in this basic heading to have that there. And they apply different approaches. One say, as soon as it is easy to find in my country, I think it's relevant and important for our country. If I don't find it, it's probably not important. Some others say I apply sales figures for some items if I have them from any national databases. And so there's no strict guidance on how to do that. I would normally say, if you want to do this and you know that some things are extremely important, others are not, I would use the indicators 1 and 0, 1 for the important ones, 0 for the not so important ones. But that is not a strict rule. I'm afraid that's the only guidance I can give. Apply common sense to say, well, this is important to get a good representation of this type of equipment.
Thank you, Peter.
Rui, do you want to add something on that from the side, from the view of World Bank?
Sorry, hello. Yes, I can. So everything that you said is correct. This is similar to the important or less important that you may also be familiar from the household consumption survey. But in this case, this parameter is here because some regions use this parameter for their own regional comparison, and other regions do not use this parameter. So in the case of ECLAC, I believe that ECLAC is not using this parameter for the regional comparison. And at the global level, we also do not use this parameter. So you can report this, but it will be informative only. It will be just for our validation purposes. You can report it or not, but it will not impact the calculations. So if you don't know how to answer, you can answer everything with 1, everything with 0. Because it will not have an impact in our calculations. But if you want to provide us more information, it's just indicative that in your country, this item is important or not. Okay, thank you.
Muchas gracias, Rui. Pienso que en nuestra región sería importante que lo reportaran de modo de saber cuán representativos son estos ítems en cada país. Es una sugerencia.
Okay, thank you very much, Claudia, for this additional information. Thank you very much, Rui. I think that helps countries. We had a discussion in Europe whether we want to just disregard that at all, but so far it is included in the calculation, and so people want to have it. They want to have this option. And well, the results, they are not changing so much. It may affect the results for a single country, but the overall result is not affected by that too much. Okay, so next slide. I'm always stressing that, and so what I would remind you that we have this item-related PDF documents. These documents can be obtained from ECLAC. I do not know whether they are going to put that on a SharePoint or whether they provide different means of getting that to you. It's quite large. I think the overall size is a couple of 100 megabytes. So it's okay to download it from SharePoint, but it's not okay to be mailed. These PDF documents, they can be all types of documents. In this case, for instance, we have a Canon data sheet. We have a data sheet from a Henny Penny Open Fryer from a group with Autolift, and we have data sheet for fire extinguishers. I think that's the Gloria ones. And you may find, first of all, some ideas what these items are used for. You may find some idea of what it is looking like. You may find an idea of some of the strange things that are coming with it and are given in the specifications, what this actually is. And you might also find order codes in there. So this is valuable information. It doesn't necessarily help in every case, but it may help in a couple of critical ones. So please use these PDF documents in order to have the most information that's available about the item. Okay, now we come to do's and don'ts. I know we had that already during the presentations, but I think it's close to something like 10 commandments for data collection in PPP. So we will still stress this. Used or new, please price new items only. New in the sense that it means these are not items which are already used. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the newest model available in the market. It means new, not used. Used equipment must not be priced at all in the machinery and equipment survey. The reason for that is that you cannot compare the different condition this used equipment is in across countries properly, and that would make prices not comparable at all. So please do not price used items. Sources of price information, especially if you use prices from the internet, make sure that such a website that you are referring to is a popular website which commercial purchasers would also use. Please make sure to use the price a commercial purchaser would have to pay, not the government, not a student or a teacher or a private person. This also means that you should be very careful, because in Europe, at least by law, it's required that if you have websites where both commercial and private persons can buy, commercial customers and private persons, then there may be two prices, one including value-added tax and one excluding it. But if it is only one price that is mentioned, it has to be the price including VAT. That is a typical error that is made every time in the European comparison program. We check numbers like, if you have an item that costs 499 euros, this looks very much like a consumer price. And we will then, as a standard, ask countries, well, are you really sure this is a price excluding the value-added tax? If it is not the value-added tax, which is in most cases deductible for the commercial buyer, has to be deducted. So if you have only one price, make sure that it is check that it would normally be a price with VAT, and then deduct the VAT because it's normally deductible. Item availability. Well, in some of the web shops, you might run into a situation where they give you low availability of an item. They may indicate that. Then that is something where you could say, well, oh, I do not trust this price. It's not available in a sufficient quantity. If you have web shops, for instance, selling computers or something like that, the bigger ones can be, in some cases, identified by putting in a large number of items you want to copy for this specific item, just keying 99 or 20 or 50 or something like that, whatever you think is appropriate, before putting the item in the shopping cart, or put it in the shopping cart and then increase the quantity to see whether they properly have this. In some cases, this actually putting items in a shopping cart is only possible if you previously register for the use of this. As far as I am experiencing this, registering for this normally does not cost anything, and you can just do that, and then just do not buy. Just put it in the shopping cart and then check whether you can put something in. Then that's fine, but don't push the button, go to cashier's desk, and then give your credit card details. Otherwise, everything is fine. Where do you price an item? If you price an item at the specified item position, only do that if you find the same make, which is brand, and model with the same specifications, or as we explained in the examples we have provided so far, with specifications which are very close to what we prescribed in the specification sheet. Exceptions might, for instance, be slightly different horsepower measurement for a motor. That is sometimes done by car companies for taxation reasons or for insurance reasons. Some countries might require a different thickness of one metal or the other, and it is still this item and sold and used in your country for the same purpose, but you just have to add something there. Then that's fine, price it at the same specified position. All the other cases, be it the same brand but a very different model, or the same brand and a close model but not really the same one, just price it at the unspecified counterpart item position. And remember, the sequence is the unspecified items is first in the list, the associated counterpart specified item is the item after it. When pricing an unspecified item, please refer to the notes and the portable document format file for the counterpart item, counterpart specified item, to check for additional information, what this is used for and things like that, because you don't have a PDF document for the unspecified items. One thing that is extremely important, if you price something from the internet, please keep records of what was priced. Couple of countries make screen prints. A couple of countries actually do hard copies. A couple of countries use Microsoft OneNote to copy both links and screenshots of what was priced. Others create printouts using Acrobat, Adobe Acrobat or other tools for creating PDF documents and store this information on their computer. A very good idea is, if you do this documentation, just take the item code as the file name. If you make it more easily readable for yourself, you could add the make and the model after that, but let the file name start with what you have as the item code. That makes it much more easy to find the correct files afterwards if they are going to be used during validation. In some cases, people from ECLAC, if we have strange prices and we do not understand the reason why the price is so different from what is given in other countries, this information that you print out from the web page or that you store in a PDF document or in OneNote may help people at ECLAC and me to identify the source of the problem. I think that's also a good point in time to say, when we ask something about a price, we do not say this price is wrong. We just say we do not understand why it is so different. We want to understand what the problem is. Is it either a discount or is there a potential misunderstanding on our side or on your side that we could together overcome to get the correct prices? So we are never saying it's wrong. It's just, please give us more information. And if it is then in fact wrong, then we will say that. Otherwise, it's just saying we want to have more information. We do not understand that. Remember, the final goal of the whole thing is to have a reliable set of prices from which the price level indices for your country and for the different basic headings can be calculated. So what ECLAC and me will try to do is make everything plausible. And so we need this additional information. So keeping records is a good thing. And please keep in mind, web pages change over time. So having a documentation rather than just a web link really helps. So next, why does it not work? My keyboard doesn't work. Ah, now it's okay. Okay, when you search for an item on the internet, please make sure if you look for something, the internet is quite tolerant to variance. It might not necessarily give you what you want to price. So sometimes just the item image that is given may help. Sometimes you might need an additional order code or something else. If you are looking just for Canon EOS 90D, I would say around about 90% of the replies that you get in the internet would be something with the lens. But in this case, the item in the list is the camera without the lens and without the memory card. So if you have an image, check whether it's the correct one. And if you have product codes and things like that, please make sure that these match and that you're not by mistake just collecting a price for toner rather for a Hewlett-Packard printer rather than for the Hewlett-Packard printer itself. That is a very common mistake. Not with a printer, but with a lens over here. We had round about half the countries reporting the wrong price. Okay, when you collect more than one price for the same item, then you would normally expect that the prices are close to each other. One method of checking that would be the min-max ratio, meaning you take the smallest price and you take the highest price, divide the smallest by the highest and get a number. And if this number is way off what you would normally expect, then you would be a bit suspicious whether, for instance, for a group of tractors, you have 3 dealers selling this and one gives you a prices with which is half the price of the other ones, then it is probably used equipment in this case. And you could go back to the dealer and immediately ask, rather than us coming back to you and asking for an explanation of a strange low price. Another coefficient that you could check is the coefficient of variation, but I would say that only makes sense if you have a vast number of price observations for one item. As I said, prices are typically expected to be in a close range. I would suggest that you could double check prices if the min-max ratio is at least less than 0.33. You should check that. If the coefficient of variation for a large number of items of observations for the same item is bigger than 30, you could check that too. If you priced the same item already in ICP 2017, then you could check the ratio of the prices reported in local currency units, reported one hand in ICP 2021 and the other one in ICP 2017. For specified items also covered in the European Comparison Program, 3/4 of the ratios we find are in the range 0.9 to 1.5. So it's a bit skewed towards the high side. That's because of inflation in many cases. So I hadn't expected that it would be so high above 1, but 0.9 to 1.5. This is a typical range that we would find over here. There are some exceptions, however. These are the items which are heavily modified between 2017 and 2021. For these, you will get information from ECLAC. I have prepared a list of that already. I will edit that a little bit to make things a little bit clearer and then provide that to ECLAC so that they can give it to you and say for these items, the ratios are way different from this typical range. Everything which is within this range we won't mention, but the other ones should probably be mentioned there. You might remember the Apple Mac Pro, where we had a factor of 2 to 3 that we would normally expect. Item sequence, when you price more than one item within the same item group, please make sure that you enter it at the correct position. Typical situation for that is when you have, for instance, 2 Ford vans and you ask your dealer for a price for both of these 2, and he will give you probably the prices for both of them because for him it's not a big problem, but he may report the prices in the wrong order. I know this sounds funny, but it happens all the time in the European Comparison Program, and I do that since 2004 now, and there hasn't been a single year where we haven't found at least 4 or 5 of these errors. So please avoid this, apply your common sense. And if you know this one is basically the same device with a stronger machine or more capacity or a little bit higher quality, then you would expect the prices to be in a certain direction, up or down. And if it's the other way around, just double check or go back to the dealer and check using the phone or an email with him whether he has probably made a mistake in the sequence. Don'ts. Well, we have some icons for this, and I think I have to thank people at ADB again to make things very clear. This one is shiny and brand new. Yeah, that's okay to use it. And the one on the right-hand side, it already looks dirty, it's used. And even if it was polished, you would still see it's a different item, it's a used item, much cheaper than the other one. You have the same thing for textile machinery, for baking equipment, for anything in food processing, and for a lot of construction equipment, you have a high tendency towards used equipment in a couple of countries. So please make sure not to price any used equipment. The same holds if you find the word refurbished. Don't report prices for refurbished equipment too. It's not okay to price refurbished equipment. Well, one thing I forgot to mention over there, this is especially important if you go to price pages where you find both used and new. I know you have that for a couple of Caterpillar sites. I know that for a couple of producers of baking equipment and other things like that. So these are very prone to providing errors there. So please double check if you have really priced new equipment. Well, another don't, please do not make errors when pricing something with an order quantity different from one. An example would be dry powder fire extinguisher. You look for a price of 1 unit in an order of 10. You have a price for 10 units. Please don't report that one. That would be an obvious error that would probably be detected when ECLAC does the first data validation. But well, you could spare the effort to have to correct that afterwards and resend the data file. Just make sure you have a different order size. Apply this order size as a number of that, by that the order price is divided to come up with the unit price. And make sure that you only report the other costs as unit costs too. So not the full delivery cost should go to the delivery cost input field, but if we are talking about the fire extinguishers here, delivery cost for 10 divided by 10 is the unit cost. I stress that all the time because I know for beer kegs, we had the example where people gave the unit price for 1 beer keg, but the whole transport cost 4,000. And then of course the transport cost is much higher than the price for the keg itself. Other don'ts, we have mentioned some of them before, but I think as a recollection, it's important to stress that you should not report prices at which a commercial buyer would not be allowed to buy this item. For instance, that's a special price for government agencies or for students and teachers. Government agencies, that is mostly the case with software where you have something like Gov licenses, G-O-V. I know we don't price software over here, so that doesn't apply here. But for computers, a lot of stores have special offers for students and teachers, and you have to provide documentation or an ID that you are actually a student or a teacher in order to get that price. So you can't use these prices, only use prices available to the commercial buyer. If you have tool sets or hand tools or other smaller pieces of equipment that are used both for do-it-yourself applications and for professionals, please do not price do-it-yourself level items. Remember, people have to work with such items for quite a long time, and they need to apply certain standards for the protection of their workforce so that people can really use these devices without being harmed after using that for a long time. If you have items which are including deductible tax, VAT, as I mentioned, some internet pages give the price including VAT only. Use the price without VAT. And as I already said, please calculate it correctly. Some people, just by mistake and out of being not paying attention to what actually they should calculate there, use a wrong formula for doing that. But I think that for you as statisticians, that should be no problem. Do not price items which are clearly labeled as clearance sales, because that would be, for instance, the case where somebody wants to get rid of the last tractor unit he has in his yard and then close down the shop, for instance, or get out the last batch of old computers in his shop to have shelf space for new items. Please do not use these clearance prices. Items should be available in sufficient quantities. Again, please do not price items which are additional accessories or incidentals for equipment, like laser printers, photocopiers. And I showed you a page where that was the case when I looked for a specific laser printer and found a price also for the toner. And as I said before, for the data collection form, even if the data collection form is not locked, please do not temper it. Please do not insert especially rows, columns in the item sheets, delete sheets, because if you delete sheets, then you would cause reference errors in the database sheet, and that would have an impact on the database sheet and make semi-automatic processing difficult or even impossible. I know we had that happening for the last survey when a couple of countries deleted rows and columns. Other countries deleted some sheets or specified characters rather than numbers in number input fields. So please try to avoid these errors. One thing you could check on the input sheet would be whether the value displayed in the total unit price net of deductible taxes and discounts is shown properly. Normally, you should have a feeling what the numbers that you entered in the separate price components, what they would normally add up to, and so you would have a good feeling whether the value given there is correct. If there is something displayed like error or something like that, you probably have entered something wrong. One thing I experienced in Europe is a problem with thousands separators and decimal separators in Excel. If you copy prices from emails or from documentations or from web pages, please make sure not to insert the wrong separators there. In some cases, for instance, in Germany, we use the comma as decimal separator and the point as thousand separator, whereas in the US, it's the other way around. So if you take a price from a US data sheet or information from a US data sheet, then thousand separator and decimal separator are mixed up. That is sometimes the reason for a price which is wrong by a magnitude of 1,000, and we definitely do not want to have that. That was just one extra. I didn't put that down, but that just came up to my mind. Okay, data validation. What will be done when you transmit your data? Please do that according to the timeline that is going to be highlighted later. Because if we have all the data available at the same time, that makes analysis much easier than having to come back to the analysis of the same items again and again. First of all, it's going to be checked whether the forms are filled in correctly, so whether there are any violations of the question not to alter the forms. Then it will be checked whether the makes models price are actually usable at the respective item position. If they are not, then they should probably be pushed to the unspecified position or to a different item if it has been entered by mistake at the wrong item position. Then it should be checked whether there are any obvious typing errors. Typical error that we find is that there are zeros in excess or too few zeros, especially if you have a currency where you end up with a high amount of digits to indicate a price. If any of the prices so is way off, that may be caused by a typing error. This may lead to a temporary exclusion of the price from the Caranta table calculation, but in the end, it's your data, and this will only be temporary, and data will be taken into account to the extent possible. Then the Caranta tables are going to be calculated, and then we will start with the analysis of the extreme prices. Extreme prices will be detected using a check on items with very low min-max ratios, items with very high coefficients of variations, or items prices with extreme exchange rate index. These will be tackled then, and then afterwards queries will be created from that and will be sent to you. Some examples what data validation can do for you and why it is done. We have a situation over here. I had to eliminate the country denominations below the bars because that's still work in progress. Over here we have color codes, one for each level of prices. So if we have prices below 66, they are going to be indicated in this blue color. If there were prices below 50, they would be in dark blue. Everything which is in the range from 80 to 125 is in green. Yellow is between 125 and 150. So you easily can see if the prices are in an acceptable range. And over here you see 3 columns in gray. These respond to 3 countries that reported prices for wine kegs instead of beer kegs. And the wine kegs in this case were equipped with additional equipment, and that's the reason why they were so expensive. So they are shown in that comparison, but they are not used in the calculation. And so that was eliminated from the calculation, and then the values are quite okay. These 2 prices over here, they come from 2 countries with a very strong manufacturing base for stainless steel products, and so cheap products are expected over there because we have unspecified item over here, and local production tends to be cheaper in this case. Second one would be the reduction of extreme outliers. That is not yet finished for this item. It's an inspection tool set, automated inspection tool set from Teng Tools, and we have 3 very high prices, index over 200, 3 very low prices, index below 50, and in the current set of data, as I said, it's not yet finished. We have 1 high price left, which is probably okay, but because it is from an island, and some of the prices are very high over there because importers just can get that. So they have that and nobody else has it there. And just rather than directly importing it, people are still buying it in the shop and then paying higher prices. And this one still is wrong, but that has to be discussed in one of the country missions because we have to explain to the country why his price source is bad. In fact, these 3 countries all reported data from the same price source, and the price quotation given there is just wrong, cannot be correct. And then something that looks okay. We had this example, the laser meter from Hilti. In Europe, as I said, this is the order code for that one. The situation is fine. The validation is regarded to be close to final. Min-max ratio is 0.37. Variation coefficient is 23. We know these 2 countries with the high prices that these prices are from countries which have the highest PLIs in Europe anyhow. So this is going to be expected, is close to their normal price level. The countries in the dark blue and light blue, they are all countries which are known to have low price indices. So this is very plausible, taking into account the overall situation. And all the others are fine, and we have just one price left, which is in gray, so not taken into account because it's for a different model from a different brand, and that's the reason why it's not included in the calculation. In order to explain that, in Europe, we do not have so many unspecified counterpart positions. We have mostly the branded items being priced, and that means that if you want to specify something else and take that as a recommendation for the next survey, as an indicative model for the next survey, then you would report the price there and just mark it as not being the exact model. So it's not included in the calculation. And that closes my presentation for this session. I thank you all very much and hope I did not exhaust you too much. I know the matter is very complicated, and believe me, I have learned that for 17 years now, and I'm still learning.
Muchísimas gracias, Peter, por esta excelente presentación sobre esta sesión 4. Antes, quisiera comentarte que hay una pregunta en el chat que está en español y la puse en inglés. No sé si la quieres leer o te la leo.
Yes, I'm familiar with this item, TK3302. This is fine. I would report that at the counterpart position, and well, just because this can happen in a couple of cases. In fact, I would even report this specific one in the specified position and regard that as a close enough match. But because people are going to use that as a general recommendation, I would say whenever you are in doubt whether this model should be priced at the specified or unspecified position, enter the price at the unspecified counterpart and report the model. And if during validation we detect that the match is in fact close enough for it to be used in the specified position, we will inform you accordingly, and you can then put it to the other position. We have the same in Europe, where we say if people are in doubt whether it's identical or equivalent, they just mark it as equivalent, and we would then give the recommendation, yeah, this is close enough, mark it as identical.
Muchas gracias, Peter, por esta recomendación. Y bueno, gracias por tu excelente presentación, por volver al formulario que nunca está de más, puesto que pudimos refrescar la metodología para completar la encuesta con todos esos detalles de los números, de las letras, en fin, qué es lo que se espera que tengamos que poner ahí. Este tema de la marca que aparece en el cuestionario, pero que, digamos, nos regimos por la marca y no por el lugar de procedencia, así como tú lo comentaste en el caso del ejemplo que nos pusiste de Alemania. Nosotros también tenemos aquí algunas fábricas que producen maquinaria y equipo, digamos, en los países de la región, como es el caso de Caterpillar en Brasil. Entonces, efectivamente, se va a recolectar Caterpillar independiente que no sea Estados Unidos, digamos. También el tema de la representatividad, o sea, nos quedó claro el objetivo, por qué se pide la importancia o menos importante. Para nosotros también creo que puede ser interesante saber qué tan representativos son estos ítems dentro de nuestra región para poder ir digamos, o sea, para poder tener más detalle de la información recolectada. Y también agradecerte por todos estos que se debe o no se debe hacer, estos do's and don'ts que nos pusiste de manera muy útil para recolectar los precios de la manera más adecuada, cosa de poder tener información en el momento de la validación, información digamos más verificada, ¿no es cierto? Y por todos los criterios que se utilizan en la validación y que tú nos mencionaste, que es una validación primera que podemos hacer a nivel país y luego a nivel de CEPAL, digamos. Así es que muchísimas gracias por esta muy interesante presentación con toda esta información que tú nos proporcionaste. Y ahora yo creo que si no hay más preguntas, no sé si algún país quisiera hacer algún comentario, tiene alguna otra duda para movernos a la sesión final con las conclusiones del taller. Si no es así, si no hay más preguntas, tal vez William quisieras hacer alguna otra comentario o bien Ernestina. Creo que hemos tratado de cubrir casi todo lo importante dentro de esta encuesta y lo importante ahora es hacer el trabajo de la mejor manera y a quienes ya han hecho algún levantamiento de estos cuestionarios, bueno, revisarlos de acuerdo a toda esta metodología propuesta por Peter. Así es que no veo preguntas en el chat. Así es que le pediría aquí a Lady si nos puedes ayudar con la presentación de la última parte de las conclusiones finales. Muchas gracias, Vivi, por hacer compartirnos tu pantalla. Bueno, en esta última parte de la jornada quisiéramos, digamos, cerrar todo este taller. La próxima, Vivi, por favor. Con estas, con todo lo que hemos discutido y bueno, rescatando de manera resumida, digamos, a tener presente a ciertos atributos, ciertas recomendaciones, tanto en términos de precios como en términos de especificaciones. Voy a ir muy rápido porque más o menos Peter las comentó una por una en su presentación. Así es que nos quedamos con tener a considerar que se trata de compilar precios al comprador, ¿cierto? Si se trata de importación directa, no olvidar incorporar los gastos de transporte y las tarifas de importación si es que existen. No olvidar dividir la cotización por el número de unidades requeridos, tal como nos puso ahí Peter con el tema de los, que se llaman los, para pagar incendios, digamos. En lo posible que los precios sean del año de referencia 2021, independiente que los recolecten en este momento, digamos, a pedir ojalá los precios del año anterior. Los precios son en moneda nacional y se debe usar el tipo de cambio utilizado por el importador o el distribuidor. La próxima, Vivi, por favor. En términos de especificaciones, para aquellos modelos que se hayan actualizado a lo largo de 2021, la recomendación general es incluirlos bajo no especificados y se analizará la posibilidad de dejarlos en una lista regional o bien lo que planteaba Peter, si son demasiado, si son equivalentes a los modelos ya especificados en el cuestionario, tal vez se puedan registrar ahí, pero o sea, la recomendación inicial es que los pusieran como no especificados. Muy importante regirse por la marca, ya lo hemos planteado, independiente de la procedencia de fabricación. Lo que sí podríamos pedirle que la explicitaran en sus comentarios. También, como se ha hecho, se ha destacado, digamos, que el propósito de este programa es la comparabilidad. Necesitamos recolectar los precios de los modelos comparables y en este caso privilegiar las versiones mencionadas en los formularios, aun cuando sean antiguas, pero siempre respetando que sean equipos nuevos sin uso. Esto ya lo hemos especificado en varias partes del taller. La próxima, Vivi, por favor. En caso que no puedan conseguir estos modelos antiguos y solo puedan encontrar modelos nuevos, la idea es que los registren como no especificados y con el interés de ser parte de esta lista regional, como ya les mencionaba. Los impuestos y permisos para el uso del equipo, siempre que no sean deducibles, se deben de registrar y idealmente ponerlo también en las observaciones. Bueno, Peter ya nos mostró, volviendo con el uso del formulario, digamos, todos aquellos errores recurrentes o problemas que se enfrentan, digamos, perdón, anterior, eso. Los problemas generales que ocurren, digamos, gracias a su experiencia en ciclos anteriores y también en otras regiones. Así es que, por favor, poner mucha atención en no borrar celdas, en no borrar columnas, filas, y en poner la información sin borrar las fórmulas también, como nos decía Peter, la información que tiene que ir en cada celda, ¿ya? También tener en consideración los cambios de modelo respecto al ciclo 2017 y en algunos casos, como nos mostraba Peter, los factores de precio distinto entre ambos ciclos, digamos, según el tipo de equipo o de maquinaria. Por último, comunicarse con CEPAL en caso de cualquier duda sobre algún producto con su punto focal y siempre, por favor, poner en copia el correo de PCI CEPAL. La próxima, Vivi, por favor. Como les decíamos ahí en el chat también, todos los formularios y toda la información operacional está disponible en el sitio compartido en Teams con los puntos focales de los países. También circulamos la información por correo electrónico en la medida que es posible, pero como bien decía Peter, en el caso de estos archivos PDF es muy pesado, por lo tanto no los podemos circular y por eso es que lo vamos a colocar el día lunes en el sitio compartido en Teams. Ahí lo podrán bajar, digamos, desde ahí. Y en esto es muy importante que si a alguien no le está funcionando su acceso a este sitio compartido, por favor se lo hagan saber a su punto focal, siempre con copia al correo del PCI para poder todos tener una información, una comunicación sobre las dificultades que puedan estar enfrentando. Y bueno, el calendario de entrega de la información está aquí en esta lámina, es un poco larga, está marcado lo que tiene que ver con maquinaria y equipo, que se suponía debía recolectarse entre el cuarto trimestre de 2021 y el primer trimestre de 2022. Esto porque, dadas las restricciones en pandemia de tantos cierres de establecimientos y todo lo que hemos vivido, digamos, los últimos años, nos llevó a la idea de mejor dejarlo para un periodo en que sí estuvieran abiertos los establecimientos y sí se pudiera hacer mejor la recolección. Pero cierto que hacer hincapié en que el año de referencia es el 2021 y ojalá pudieran pedir la información con ese año de referencia y bueno, si no es posible, la llevamos al año 2021, pero idealmente sería esa solicitud, ¿ya? También aprovechamos de solicitarles las otras encuestas especiales, como también los datos del consumo en los hogares, que ahí están, digamos, especificados con crucecitas para que nos hagan el envío en caso que no lo hayan hecho. Así es que les agradecemos, por favor, nos puedan hacer un envío de toda esta información para poder proceder ahora a la etapa de validación de toda ella. Le vamos a estar comunicando cuándo haremos los talleres de validación de las distintas, del consumo en los hogares principalmente, y luego de las otras encuestas especiales. Así es que eso es digamos, una planificación que tenemos que hacer en base a la información que tenemos. Y en particular, como bien decía Peter, es importante, por favor, que cumplan con este calendario en términos de, bueno, de maquinaria y equipo y de las demás encuestas, porque efectivamente tenemos que hacer todo el proceso de validación. Entonces, y con un solo país no podemos hacer validación. Por tanto, es importante que los países hagan este esfuerzo y nos envíen la información de modo de tener una masa de información que nos permita poder trabajar en todo este proceso de validación. Por mí, creo que estamos, digamos, listos con el taller. No sé si es que, Marisa, quisieras tú decirlo a todos, porque
Yes, I actually put something in the chat.
Yes.
Yes, so I was stating on behalf of the Project Director Regional Statistics and staff of the CARICOM Secretariat, we would like to thank ECLAC for organizing this very informative workshop, including all the excellent presentations. We took note of all the recommendations. I'm sure that will be helpful to countries as they begin to collect prices for the survey. I didn't make this point in the chat, but I noted some countries made mention of the fact of a CARICOM regional list, which might have to be done at the unspecified level position. We're looking in to see how that is possible. But as always, we'd like to recognize this very tremendous and effective collaboration taking place between CARICOM and UNECLAC, and would like to sincerely thank the staff of UNECLAC for this show of solidarity. We continue to urge our member states and associate member states to continue to show the same level of commitment and determination in this cycle of the ICP as you would have done in previous cycles. So I thank you.
Muchas gracias, Marisa, por tus palabras, por el compromiso de CARICOM de seguir apoyando el programa y a la CEPAL en este esfuerzo, y seguramente vamos a seguir organizando distintas actividades a lo largo de este y los próximos años para poder implementar de la mejor manera este programa tan importante a nivel global. Así es que muchas gracias de nuevo, Marisa, y llevan los agradecimientos también a Filomen, que siempre nos ha apoyado fuertemente en esta y otras actividades que también venimos haciendo en la CEPAL en todo el área estadística. Rui, ¿tú quisieras decir algunas palabras?
Yes, thank you, Claudia. I just want to thank ECLAC to organize this workshop, which is a very important workshop, and I think it was very useful for a very important survey. And yes, if there are any other questions, there are plenty of materials online that I'm sure that ECLAC will post them on their website, and you can always reach out to your focal points. So yes, I just want to thank you on behalf of the World Bank and encourage all participants to do this price survey as well as you can. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Rui. Peter, ¿tú quisieras decir algunas palabras ahora al final del taller? Ahora que ya estás más descansado, luego de tanto, de unas jornadas tan extensas.
Thank you very much for listening and for giving nice comments on all of the topics. I think it's a tremendous task that you are facing, but well, I can promise you ECLAC is going to help very much, and I will try to do my part in order to help you. And I want once again to thank the interpreters. I think they did a tremendous job, and I can't understand how they do that, but well, definitely I don't do it. I don't have to do it. It's fine for me. So thank you very much. Thank you, Claudia, and all the other people at ECLAC for providing information and for keeping contact between all of us. And I hope everything is going to turn out well. You all stay safe and have a nice prize collection and a nice weekend.
Muchas gracias, Peter. Efectivamente, quisiéramos, en nombre de la División de Estadísticas de la CEPAL, agradecer a Conferencias, quien ha coordinado todo con el trabajo de los intérpretes, que ha sido fundamental para el éxito de este taller. Sin duda, es muy difícil su tarea y ciertamente ha sido muy importante, especialmente en estos productos que son tan complejos, por lo menos para los que no somos, no tenemos familiaridad con todo esto de la maquinaria y equipo. Así es que muchísimas gracias también de parte de la edición de estadística a los intérpretes y también a nuestra unidad de informática y cómputos, nuestros TIC. Muchas gracias a John y a Pía que nos acompañaron durante estos días. Muchas gracias a ti, Peter, por tan interesantes, importantes y muy, ¿cómo decirlo?, didácticas presentaciones. A los colegas del Banco Mundial por estar siempre presentes en todas las jornadas y resolviendo todas las dudas y comentarios que aparecieron. A los colegas del CARICOM que nos han acompañado también, y en especial al equipo del Programa de Comparación Internacional de la CEPAL, que ha estado muy comprometido trabajando no solo por este taller, sino que por todas las actividades que hemos venido realizando a lo largo de la implementación de este ciclo 2021. Así es que a todos, muchísimas gracias. Ha sido un taller muy bueno, muy productivo, y espero que todas estas recomendaciones y todas estas revisiones que hemos hecho nos sirvan para poder hacer una mejor encuesta, como decía Peter, una buena encuesta, y les deseamos a todos un buen fin de semana descansado, que puedan recuperar energías para el trabajo que viene. Así es que gracias a todos y quedamos aquí. Muchas gracias.